morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
Oh boy, this has been a busy spring. 8 days on the road with our sold-out Western Spirit shows in Alberta, our big cruise reunion celebration in Red Deer, and another main event. Now it's back home and back to work. This week, large animal vet Dr. Larry Frischke is back, and we'll talk about how horses are performing much better at an advanced age than in the past. And he'll talk about one very special equine senior citizen.
I said, this is school. And there was gasps in the crowd.
Wow.
And afterwards we had a lineup of people, and one lady hung on his neck and sobbed. She said, I had no idea he was still alive.
And there's another amazing true life adventure from Baxter Black.
Then she reared back and rose up. Calvin would have mercifully fallen off, except that his belt hooked over the saddle horn.
Okay, and on the Rangeland News, all you need to know about your riding lawnmower.
Especially a riding lawnmower is proper tire pressure.
And the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight takes you back to the branding pen.
We were in the saddle 'fore daylight was pinking up the east, and the cooks began in the early morn building up a branding feast.
That's Floyd Beard. You'll enjoy what he has for sure. On the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, I look at the importance of being tuned in to your horse. And there's a great old Song of the West for our classic segment, and Tom Perlman kicks us off.
Our horses stood slack, cinched and patient, waiting on the rail, except that big bay Jimmy bought last year. He dug himself a hole that you could dang near stock of trout. I believe the skies are finally gonna clear. Young Bob's already got a hold his wages on his dad, saying he won't miss a heel today. Hands from old man Filson's place are coming up the lane. Looks like we'll burn a heap of hair today. And I smell smoke from branded fires burned out long ago, drifting on a wind that's blown 100 years or so from the hills north of Milk River to the Gulf of Mexico. I'd never hang my hat somewhere that west wind didn't blow. Things ain't the way they used to be when Granddad was a kid. Damn few outfits run a wagon anymore. And bit by bit the range is being slowly whittled down till nothing's quite the way it was before. But the Rocker 60, old KG, and others of the breed remind us all how things used to be. And as long as we keep spurring down those trails of yesterday, that west wind will carry more than memories. And I smell smoke from branding fires burned out long ago, drifting on a wind that's blown 100 years or so from the hills north of Milk River to the Gulf of Mexico. I'd never hang my hat somewhere that west wind didn't blow. Never hang my hat somewhere the west wind didn't blow.
Whenever my pal Dr. Larry Frischke and I get together, I go right to his free advice department, and boy, I like to pick his brain. And we're lucky enough to have him on the line today, and let's start out with West Nile disease, Larry. is it still as much of a concern as it was over the last few years?
Back in my Wyeth and Pfizer days, I was the voice of West Nile initially because we were the only, as Wyeth, we were the only company that had a vaccine. And so we were looked at for information on this disease, and I learned an awful lot about it. But in the last, say, 5 years now, I've been away from it, so I haven't really been as close to it as I have in the past. What I heard just circumstantially is that we had quite a flare-up again last year, and in southern and eastern Alberta, I guess, and so that's typical. And we know that once these viral diseases, like the old sleeping sickness from back in the days when horse was king, we had these cyclic patterns, like you'd have a little flare-up, and then there's enough exposure out there that, the carrying birds, etc., get immune or die, and then takes a while for enough susceptible birds to build up, and then 4 or 5 years down the road, you get another little peak. So I guess the bottom line for your listeners is that it hasn't gone away, and you should still certainly incorporate it in your vaccine program, and definitely on your valuable horses, because Murphy's Law says that if you had 30 horses in the field and one was a $30,000 roping horse, it'd be the one that got West Nile, right?
Isn't that the way? Yeah. Boy, sleeping sickness now. We used to hear about that from the old timers all the time, and I think, wasn't it called equine infectious encephalitis or something?
Yeah.
What really, is it still around, or what was it?
It isn't totally gone, and in certain little areas there's little pockets of it still, and that's what we were saying about the West Nile. Once it's into the wild bird populations, etc., it's what we call endemic, and it's there for good. And over years it becomes less and less of a problem, right? But it's never totally gone. And again, we had one incident back when we were dealing with West Nile where people had gotten away. They just were using West Nile virus vaccine alone and weren't doing the other ones. And we had a horse with very, again, the symptoms between those two diseases are identical. And when they did the workup, by gosh, it wasn't West Nile at all, but it was good old Western encephalitis virus.
Wow.
So there you go.
Okay, now, when we come back, I want to get your thoughts on why older horses seem to be doing so much better and staying sound at an older age than they used to. Let's do that when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Large animal vet Dr. Larry Frischke's on the line again this week, and whenever we get together, we really enjoy talking about cattle, horses, animal health, and everything that goes with it. But here's something I've been wondering about. Now, I've got a neighbor who's well up in his 80s. He's been a hard-working rancher all his life, and he can still go daylight to dark, run a chainsaw for 8 or 9 hours, and dig fence posts and stack bales, and outwalk me when we're checking fence lines in the bush.
Seems to me like we talk about people and how 70 is the new 50, and 80 is the new 70, and 9 o'clock's the new midnight for a lot of us. But for horses, how 25 is the new 15, and how horses seem to be active and healthy a lot later in life than they used to be years ago. A long time ago, when a horse was up in his high teens, he was kind of considered getting over the hill, and by the time they hit 20, their useful days were over. Now I see quite a few good horses in their mid-20s that still seem sound and healthy. And what's going on here, Larry?
Well, just for an example to back you up on that, and I can't see the old boy out my window right now, but I have a horse biding his time on my farm here now, and this spring he is 37 years old.
37?
And he is a horse that came out of the mountains. He spent his life as a park warden horse. So up until age 24, he climbed mountains all his life. And then they usually retire them at around that age. And he had a bit of a bummed-up leg. And so I ended up with him to try to get him back on track. And I wanted a solid bomb-proof horse for my daughter, who had a bit of a negative experience riding horses, and I wanted to get her confidence back. And this old boy, I got to write a book on him. This old horse is pretty unique. Why is this occurring? I think the one and biggest factor, certainly we got better vaccines maybe and stuff, but vaccines, yeah, they are not all that routinely used, not the respiratory ones in just general run-of-the-mill ranch horses and stuff either. The big part is parasites, because in the past, one of the thing that you couldn't even begin to underestimate is the impact that the old bloodworm, the old large strongyles, had on the health of horses. And when ivermectin came out first in the form of Equilan way back, gosh, that was in just about when I got out of vet school, just over 40 years ago. I discussed this with my neighboring practitioner over the hill, Denton Moffat, and a few others when we were sitting around visiting about how when this stuff, again, like most things, when it hit the market, it was quite expensive, right? And so a lot of people didn't jump on board right away, but as it became more commonly used, our calls for evening and nighttime colics, or daytime colics even for that matter, decreased drastically because of one of the nasty little parts of the or the larval part of this darn bacteria's effect on the digestive tract. But that, I think, alone has added more to the longevity of the horse.
Well, I want to get more of the story of that amazing horse Skull that you have on your place. And first, though, here's the guy who kind of put together and emceed that wonderful Ian Tyson tribute concert in Elko in January. This is Mike Blakely and the Bronc Man.
1, 2, 3, 4. Well, he can't betray himself or the horses that he rides. He goes to bed each night knowing that he tried. He had that filly rode until she pawed the bridle off. He still goes to town to show everything that he ain't lost. The Bronc Man saddles up and says, "Cock your hammer, son," and throws a leg over leather that he's still paying on. Well, the only way to hurt him is to let him fall in love. The last one was a rough one, but he ain't had enough. Yeah, the last one was a rough one, but he's still hanging tough. He's firm in what he's doing, but he's gentle in how it's done. And he ain't scared to let her have her head and let her run. He knows horses can't be liars, but he's found some people are. The one that hurt him most never even left a scar. The Bronc Man saddles up and says, "Cock your hammer, son," and throws a leg over leather that he's still paying on. Well, the only way to hurt him is to let him fall in love. The last one was a rough one, but he ain't had enough. The last one was a rough one, but he's still hanging tough. Well, it don't hurt if you don't show. It's a long way from his heart. Learning things the hard way has become the easy part. She was all he ever wanted, but she found an open gate. Now the dust is all but settled, and it's all come down to fate. Well, the Bronc Man saddles up and says, "Cock your hammer, son," and throws a leg over leather that he's still paying on. Well, the only way to hurt him is to let him fall in love. The last one was a rough one, but he ain't had enough. Yeah, the last one was a rough one, boys, but he ain't had enough. Yeah, the last one was a rough one, but he's still hanging tough.
And now let's get back to large animal vet Dr. Larry Frischke.
Any other tips for, the maintenance of the health of these equine seniors? General things we should be doing?
One of the things, this old boy, he I didn't pamper this fella. He spent his winters out with the other horses, and he'd come off in the spring, maybe a little on the thin side, but give him a month of grass and he'd fatten right up. And he started to fail a little years ago, a couple years back. And so started looking a little closer at his teeth. That's one of the big things you really got to watch on these older horses, because these teeth eventually quit growing and fall out. This old boy's missing at least 3 premolars, and we've pulled 1 molar now as well, and got the rest ground down. I keep him on a special ration and keep him on some of this supplement year-round, and he's carrying reasonable flesh again, and he's deaf as a post, which I'm getting to be as well.
What was that?
Other than that, he's the same old lovable horse. There's some amazing tales being told about him. We had the Yahatinda Ranch was 100 years old in 17, and they had a gathering of the Park Warden Alumni Association.
Oh, that would have been...
And boy, that was an event that I wasn't going to miss, and I'm glad I didn't. And prior to it, about a week or two, I said to the daughter, I said, what the heck, if we're going out to an alumni event for the Park Wardens, we'd better take Skoll along.
Wow.
So I had her give him a bath, and he wasn't too sure about that, because I think Mother Nature and rain was the only thing that probably bathed him before. Put best saddle on him and took him out. And when I did my part of the presentation, I said to the crowd, you might wonder why I have this horse behind me, and this is an alumni event, is it not? And I said, this horse is an alumni. And I said, this is Skoll. And there was gasps from the crowd.
Wow.
And afterwards we had a lineup of people, and one lady hung on his neck and sobbed. She said, I had no idea he was still alive. And some of the stories they've told, I really should write a book about this old boy.
Oh, man.
Yeah, he's pretty special.
Well, we'll have another story about Skoll a little later coming up. Baxter Black and another one of those special songs, and then the Rangeland News, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, and I'll be right back after this with a little peek at Calvin and the Snaky Mare. Well, friends, thanks for listening. It'll be no surprise that I've published a beautiful new hardback book called A Commotion in Rhyme. It fits in the bunkhouse, the outhouse, the bookstore, the library, or the cookbook. Unfortunately, it won't fit in a cupcake. A commotion? Oh. Call 800-654-2550 or BaxterBlack.com. Come to think of it, it might fit in a Caesar salad. Calvin said he wasn't that good at getting hurt. Of course, some would say he didn't have to try that hard. Some would have thought he should have waited more than 2 months after the knee surgery to try out the Snaky Mare. Some would say that naming his North Carolina ranch the Cripple Creek Livestock Company became a self-fulfilling prophecy. The Snaky Mare was 8 years old. Calvin had made several circles inside the round pen when his grandson came out to watch. "Hi, Pawpaw." Calvin stopped the mare in front of the boy. "Make him one, Pawpaw." "No, I better," he started to say as he shifted in the saddle to pat the boy on the back. Sensing his vulnerability, the mare bogged her head and commenced a bucking. It had been a long time since Calvin had heard a bronc bawl like that. It's an eerie sound, a cross between an elk bugle, a lion's roar, with a twang of tortured mule in there somewhere. She crashed to her knees, pitching Calvin forward over on her neck. Then she reared back and rose up. Calvin would have mercifully fallen off, except that his belt hooked over the saddle horn. Some would say the next few seconds were reminiscent of a frenzied mating ritual involving a sea otter and a fire hose. He flashed back on the memory of his friend Monica, a barrel racer. She, too, had gotten out over the top of her horse on the last barrel and hooked the front of her bra over the saddle horn. Calvin remembered thinking that surely those puny hooks would break, not remembering that Monica was a full-figured woman and had industrial-strength hardware 6 inches wide across her back. She crossed the finish line lying on the horse like a surfboard. The memory of Monica faded. Calvin's meteor-like impact was slowed only by the fact that he tangled an arm in the coils of his rope on the way down, which flipped him over, allowing him to land feet first on his bad knee. He did the splits, injuring a groin muscle, and the grandson clapped. Some would say it was the ending of a perfect cowboy day. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan. Thanks for listening.
The legendary Sons of the Pioneers. With an unbroken connection back to the beginning with Roy Rogers, Tim Spencer, and Bob Nolan, up to the present, their wonderful Western harmonies are still honoring those traditions, and their live show is spectacular. Clear water. The famous Sons of the Pioneers with Dusty Roy Rogers Jr. will be touring Western Canada from June 12th to 21st. Shows in Leduc, Lloydminster, Red Deer, Lethbridge, High River, Airdrie, Camrose, Olds, and Medicine Hat, Alberta, and Moose Jaw and Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. Not another tribute act. These are the Sons of the Pioneers doing all the wonderful songs of the West we've loved for so long. Get show dates and locations and ticket information at sonsofthepioneers.org.
Drifting along with the tumbling
And a couple of dates to keep in mind for you. They will be at the McLeod Center for Performing Arts in Leduc, June the 12th at 7:30 p.m. For tickets, you can call 888-655-9090. And they'll be in Lloydminster, June the 12th at the Vic Jube Theatre, and in Red Deer at the Memorial Center on June the 14th, and more to come. Now, just ahead of the Rangeland news, here's Ryan Fritz.
Chores done, it's time to go. And all the work's gonna wait one more day. Daddy, you get that trailer unhooked. Mom's dressed up, looking good. Said she's not gonna tell you again. Horses fed and the gates are all closed. Dust flies down a gravel road. And everyone's singing 'cause they know heading for the rodeo. And it only comes to town once a year, so you get shined up, get out of here. The haying and the fencing will still get done, I suppose. This ranch family's off to the rodeo, to the hometown rodeo. We get to town and we see the sights. Horns and whistles come from the rides. Popcorn and manure fill the air. Well, Dad sees one of his old friends. He's gonna have a quick beer with him. Says, honey, yes, I know. It's almost time for the rodeo. And it only comes to town once a year, so you get shined up, get down here. All the haying and the fencing will still get done, I suppose. This ranch family's off to the rodeo, to the hometown rodeo. Well, the sun was hot all afternoon. The day goes by a little too soon. Through the bulls a nice breeze starts to blow. You know, rodeo is a child's dream. All the ketchup, dirt, and the ice cream. Mesmerized by bugs dancing in the light of a grandstand rodeo night. So find the truck, it's time to roar. All heads are accounted for, buckled in and they're gonna sleep real hard if Daddy don't shake 'em up on the cattle guards. And it only comes to town once a year, so you get shined up, get down here. All the haying and the fencing will still get done, I suppose. This ranch family's off to the rodeo,
news of the rangeland, a roundup of news and coming events from around the West.
At the top of page 1, it says, when I turned 70, that was a while ago now, Billy surprised me on my birthday with a brand new riding lawnmower, and boy, it's been a back saver ever since, for sure. Goes in the shop after the last cutting in the fall, stays there till the spring, and the question is, will it start again? It always does. And with some tips for getting that valuable implement going in the spring, here's Rod Bain.
It's that time of year that lawnmowers soon will be at full power. Or not. Marcus Gardner of Alabama Cooperative Extension System says this could be a result of winterization, meaning when winter arrives,
guess what? We just put that lawnmower back in the same shed or storage area that it came out of. We use it when it's time to be used, but we don't maintain our lawnmowers the way we should.
Such maintenance on a gas-powered mower includes items like stabilizing the fuel after winterization, routine oil and spark plug changes, and if you have a riding lawnmower, making sure the battery is fully charged.
There is a required amount of voltage the lawnmower needs to operate different parts, such as lights, sensors, blades, and the starter, and also the coil used to recharge the battery while in operation.
And Gardner says perhaps a tip we don't consider to improve lawnmower operation, especially a riding lawnmower, is proper tire pressure. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
A lot of livestock producers are adapting well to the new antibiotic rules, according to a panel of industry representatives, although there still might be some challenges. Discussing the issue during the 2019 Livestock Care Conference in Olds, Alberta, panel members said more producers are building better relationships with their veterinarians since the rules came into effect on December 1st. In my own personal operation, there have been very few challenges, says panelist Greg Bowie, a beef producer and past chair of the Alberta Farm Animal Care Association. The recently changed rules have required producers, of course, to get prescriptions for certain livestock treatments rather than buying the products off the shelves. When Canadian cattle producers complain about traceability, their biggest gripe is lost ear tags. The Canadian Cattle Identification Agency has a long-term study on ear tag retention that has looked at a whole variety of situations. Manufacturers and the agency have heard the complaints, and they're both exploring the problem and ways to keep the tags in, according to agency manager Anne Brunette-Burgess. And the result is there are no perfect tags, she says. One multiple-phase study scanned 2,000 calves, 1,000 yearlings, and 700 cows with the approved CCIA ID tags. The overall tag retention rate for calves exceeded 96% in all the herds surveyed, with 6 ranches reporting no lost tags. The overall retention for yearlings was 99%, but mature cows was down to 82%. The most common loss is that they get caught up in the feeders and the tag doesn't break but just rips out through the ear, said company representative Scott Kramer. Now, just in case you missed it, the winner of the 2019 Red Deer Main Events Trainers Challenge was Dale Clearwater. Now, this was the closest challenge ever. They were under 20 points, separating Dale, Cade Mills, and Rod Olson going into the finals. On April the 23rd, Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks euthanized a subadult male grizzly bear in the Helmville Valley after reports of multiple livestock depredations. The grizzly bear was captured by USDA Wildlife Services after it killed a calf on April 20th and another calf before that. The same bear is believed to have been responsible for 3 other livestock depredations near the same area last year. The next regular cattle sale at the BC Livestock Co-op Kamloops Yards is May the 14th, and the next sale at Williams Lake is May 23rd. Oh, and get this now, the first annual saddle horse sale at the Vanderhoof Yards will be June the 8th. Get all the information at bclivestock.bc.ca. Meanwhile, at the Innisfail Auction Market, the next horse sale is May the 25th, and the big consignment machinery sale is June the 25th. You can get all the details at InnisfailAuctionMarket.com. And boy, it was so good to see Jack and Audrey Danes at our Cruise reunion just before the main event at the Western and Red Deer, and Jack is just looking great. Said to say howdy to everybody. And that takes us down to the final item. I sure had fun with the trainers at the Trainers Challenge in Red Deer this year. Dale, Rod, and Cade were so great to work with. And the colts from the Rocket Heart Ranch were really, really nice. I think it was Dale who was working on having his colt lope in the left lead as he was circling the pen counterclockwise, and the colt picked up the right lead instead. And of course, that's what's known as a counter-canter. And one of the judges, I think it was Mark Garner, was counting the strides. And I said, well, I guess that makes him the canter counter. Okay. And that's the Rangeland News. Coming right up on the Irvin Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, I'll talk about the importance of keeping your horse's mind with you and how to tell if that's where it is. And there's more from Dr. Larry Frischke when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. Coming right up on the Irvin Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, I'll talk about something that might not seem like a big deal, but I think it is. That's knowing where your horse's mind is when you're riding him and how to keep it connected to you. First, though, here's what a few folks have said about the Spirit of the West cruises.
We had a lot of fun. One of the best cruises I've been on with you.
I've already put my deposit down for the next year's cruise, so sure we'll see you again.
Yeah, it's a good crowd.
I've met excellent people, and I couldn't ask for a better trip. The people were just like family. People look out for each other's, and it's great. It's a great experience.
And they're just dedicated to helping you enjoy your holiday. I think that's what I really like about cruising.
That's what makes it so nice, is that there are so many folks that are from the background, the way we were brought up on farms and ranches.
Our 2019 cruise will be something we've wanted to do for a long time. August 29th, we'll fly to Dublin, Ireland. We'll visit an Irish thoroughbred breeding farm, be hosted by the Irish Cattle Breeding Federation. Then we'll sail to some historic and beautiful places, Cork, Belfast, and then Glasgow and Inverness, Scotland. We might even get pictures of Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster. And we'll have stops in Paris and London. Get all the information at 1-800-530-0131. And check out our Spirit of the West cruise page at hugh-mclennan.com and our cruise Facebook page.
Now it's time for the Horse Training File, brought to you by Irvine Tack and Western Wear, Canada's largest Western store.
Hello, spring. Good riddance, winter. Time to celebrate with some serious shopping at Irvin Tack and Western Wear. City, small town, ranch, or farm. Wherever you're from, Irvin's has something for everyone. All the top names in jeans, shirts, boots, belts, jackets, hats, and much, much more. Check out the latest and suit up for spring Western style, Alberta style. So saddle up and shop till you drop at Irvin's, exit 305 off Highway 2 by Crossfield.
Don't just wear it, live it. Irvin Tack and Western Wear.
We had a great visit with Scott and Leanne there at Irvin's on our trip through Alberta, and wow, you should see the expansion they're doing on that place. My gosh. Canada's largest Western wear store, absolutely no question. Anyway, a lot of mishaps folks have with horses can be the result of having the horse's mind somewhere else or the rider's mind somewhere else than with the horse. Longtime riders, especially working cowboys whose safety depends on knowing exactly what's going on with their horse, have learned to even subconsciously feel where the horse's feet are, what his mind is on, and what his energy level is. Now, I have a pile of reasons why I'd rather be on a horse than on a quad. One of them is that I can still enjoy the scenery, look around at what's happening, keep my eye out for cattle, cougars, or moose, and I'll be confident that my horse is watching where he's going. But I still try to make sure I'm centered and balanced in the saddle, that my rein contact is where it should be and when we need it, and my horse is checking in with me on a regular basis. How do I know he's doing that? Well, usually he'll just flick an ear back in my direction once in a while, and if he doesn't, I'll nudge him gently with a spur until I see that ear on the same side as my leg flick back in my direction, and I can make eye contact with the eye on the same side. Now, paying attention to your horse does not mean staring constantly at his ears. I think that might make him a little concerned about where your focus is. I like to have my focus up the trail in the direction where we're going, and he'll feel that. If I'm looking around or up at some far mountaintop or down at something on the trail and I feel my horse's attention drift, I'll try to bring my focus back to where we're heading. And when someone says, "That horse caught me totally by surprise," it often means that he probably wasn't quite tuned into the horse. And for urban saddles and western wear, that's the Horse Training File. Hoffman's Horse Ration is what keeps our horses going and looking good even at their advanced age. We feed a couple of them seniors now. Find out all about it at hoffmanshorseration.com. 20 horses, 15 top ranch horses, and 5 prospects at the Leask Auctions Ranch Horse Competition and Sale May 18th at Lakota Agriplex, Dawson Creek, BC. See the horses performing a real ranch horse competition at 10 a.m. and the sale starts at 2:30. There's a beautiful trophy saddle and added money for the winner. For more information, see leaskauctions.com. That's LEASK auctions.com. You can bet that's going to be a good one. And we'll be getting back to Dr. Larry in just a few minutes. On our trip out to Alberta, boy, we had more fun than an old ranching couple should be allowed, I think. Can't thank Ben and Charmin Crane enough for their terrific hospitality and for organizing our shows at the beautiful venue Withrow Church, and then for showing up at our cruise reunion show as well with his dobro and his mandolin. I got to tell you about something really special that happened there, and I will in the coming weeks. Really enjoyed visiting with so many great friends, and a lot of the conversation was about how dry the land was. It snowed the day before we left, and hopefully that helps. Anyway, the seed goes in the ground, and we cross our fingers, and it's time for this song from Eli Barzy.
My father said some things you learn by only doing when it comes your turn. Some things come around, so be ready if you can. You play your heart like the farmer turns his land, and you plant your fields when the spring is tender. When the summer beats down, you pray for rain. You hope for the harvest and the long cold winter. And then you plant your fields again. Well, he spoke right to my restless soul, still wild and hungry and beyond control. For all that you do, there's a time and a place, but you won't know it till it comes your way. And you plant your fields when the spring is tender. When the summer beats down, you pray for rain. You hope for the harvest and the long cold winter. And then you plant your fields again. Plant your fields when the spring is tender. When the summer beats down, you pray for rain. You hope for the harvest and the long cold winter. And then you plant your fields again. And then you plant your fields again.
And now, back back to Dr. Larry Frischke, and boy, Larry, that Park Warden alumni gathering where you took old school and had him all saddled up, I bet that meant a lot to so many folks.
The one fella came up, and he was one of the younger ones in the group, and boy, there were stories to be told that night, I tell you, around the campfire with all these old boys, these old Park Wardens. It was a day in my life that I'll never forget. But one fella came up and said, yeah, he said, Skoll packed our kids all the time. But I said, my best story about Skoll, he said, I came into the ranch here, and he said, I headed out for my first trip, and he said it was around the second, third week of May. We got west out towards Scotch Camp, and he said, we got into one of these avalanche runs, and it's just 45-degree angle and a narrow path, and it's, you know, all scree, it's all rock. And he said, got into a lower part in it, and by gosh, there was still a lot of snow there under scattered rock and stuff. And he had Skoll packed. He was the pack horse behind his riding horse, and he said his horse started to break through this snow, and the horse was getting into trouble. So he had to get off the horse, and he started he said he had about probably, you know, good 20, 25 yards of this to go through. So he started jumping on the snow and breaking the snow down, crust, and making a path for his riding horse. And, of course, he had to drop the lead shank on Old Skoll. And he said Old Skoll stood there and watched him for a while. And then he said he turned around and started heading back the other way. Well, he said, I couldn't do much about it, so I just sort of watched him. And he said he went till he was past the rocky scree, and he got onto the grass, and he headed down the hill. And he headed down, and he disappeared into the trees down in the valley. And he kind of wondered what the heck was going on. Well, he said he kept working, and he said it took him a good half hour or more, and then he had about another hour and a half at least to get to his cabin for the night, and he was going to be running out of daylight. So he had no time to go looking for Skoll. He said, well, we'll just figure he headed back to the ranch probably, and he'd have to go back the next day and pick him up. So he headed off riding, and he got off and came around a clearing or around the corner of a bush and coming into the clearing where the cabin was, and Skoll was standing there waiting for him.
My gosh, he knew where the cabin was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He'd been out there all
and he knew that's where they were going.
Yeah.
He is
probably looking at this guy saying, you dumbass.
There's a better way
to get there.
Isn't that,
this way? And so when I hear stories like that, I just think, you know, like, gosh.
Yeah, gotta love a horse like that. Oh, man.
Yeah, the old boy, he'll get pampered until the day he decides to.
Oh, I want to see a picture of him sometime. Maybe.
I will. I'll send you one.
Thank you for doing this, Larry. Man, we could talk for hours, I'll tell you. Coming up is another classic Western song and the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. This is our classic Song of the West segment, and you know, our family used to listen to this one from an old LP of classic cowboy songs back when our kids were little, about 45 years ago. But the song goes way back further than that. The author, it's generally agreed, was a guy by the name of Will S. Hayes, and it's thought to have been written in 1869. The sheet music was printed around that time, and the earliest recording was probably around 1928 by Emery Arthur. Now, the version I had on an old Columbia LP was by the Norman Luboff Choir, and that's the one we used to listen to, and that's the one I intended to play here until I remembered that Rex Allen Sr. sung it in one of his movies. And I know I've got the movie on VHS somewhere here in the studio, but I can't tell you which movie it was in for sure. But when I remembered that, I dug out his version and listened to it and said, oh yeah, this is the one. Rex Allen Sr., the voice of the West, and the curtains of night.
When the curtains of night are pinned back by the stars, and the beautiful moon sweeps the sky, and the dewdrops from heaven are kissing the rose, I'll remember you, love, in my prayers. Go fondly to ever forget, and I'll remember you, love, in my prayers. Go where you will, on land or on sea, don't forget that I love you, still do. I have loved you too fondly to ever forget, and I'll remember you, love, in my prayers.
Last of the Silver Screen Cowboys, Rex Allen. Well, branding season starts around here in early April, sometimes in late March if the calves are born really early, and it goes well on into June and beyond. It's a time-honored tradition in cattle country, and nothing I enjoy more than being on one of our good horses dragging calves to the fire. And this is Floyd Beard in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight.
We were standing around the branding fire, swapping some old yarns, getting jobs and tools lined out and waiting on the irons. The calves and cows penned nearby were singing their misery. It's a western style of branding time on the high plains wide and free. We were in the saddle 'fore daylight was pinking up the east, and the cooks began in the early morn building up a branding feast. Then a call sings out, the irons are hot, punch a hole in your twine. Drag some calves round to the crew and we'll brand 'em up just fine. I can hear that din a building, a branding symphony, cattle bawling, burners roaring, cowboys singing out wild and free. A calf gets roped and a cow heads out, they cut her back on a dime. Cattle country rituals, a western branding time. The sun grows high and the irons grow hot and heat builds all around. Dark stained shirts, smoke and dust, a breath of air cannot be found. Humming ropes catch those heels, calves drag to the crew. Soon as one's done, another one comes till the last one's been run through. Then it's noontime now, the fire's turned down, there's teasing all around. The young bucks take the brunt of it, sitting cross-legged on the ground. But the food is good, the drinks are cold, plates piled high and free. Picnic on the branding ground, about the best you'll ever see. Then the work moves on, each does his share, the day goes fading by, with laughter, yells, and bawling calves as the sun arcs through the sky. A rope gets pulled beneath a tail, the blow-up's on a colt. Cowboy sticks to the saddle seat, but he takes a mighty jolt. Then it's quiet now, the cattle's paired, the work's done for the day. The cowboys have all gathered round, someone's showing off a bay. But the tools are packed and the food is stored. He's coiling up his twine. Neighbors helping neighbors, a western life so fine. Can you hear it? Can you hear that din a building, that branding symphony with cattle bawling and burners roaring and cowboys singing out wild and free? A calf gets roped and a cow heads out and they cut her back on a dime. Cattle country rituals, a western branding time.
Well, thanks so much for making the ride this week, and I sure hope you can join us right here next week at the same time. As always, thanks to our great Spirit of the West support crew, Mark and Kathy McMillan. And if you're looking for tractor parts, any make, any year, Mark can probably help you with his page, bctractorparts.com. And remember to look for Canadian Cowboy Country Magazine at your favorite newsstand or place of magazines. And you can subscribe online at cowboycountrymagazine.com. Till next week, I'm Hugh McLennan. Hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.